Hi again, everybody. Dave Stevens here, joining you from the home offices here in Bristol, Connecticut. And it is great to be here again this evening. We have a great show for you. Get ready to laugh a lot and not at the face of my co-host that I'm about to bring in. Of course, joining me on the Geary, Stein and Stevens show is Troy Geary. Thank you, Troy, for popping in again. Will's still on assignment. I guess he's recovering from the Hall of Fame, but it's good to have you here. How's things in Minnesota tonight?
Things are great, Dave, and excited for the show today.
Yeah, it's going to be a great show. And tonight's guest is going to, well, it's probably going to, make people laugh, make people cry. He's a guy that's, you see him in a lot of things. You kind of look at him and go, I know who that guy is. I just can't place him. But tonight, our guest is Seth Herzog. He is a comedian who has been doing a lot of work for a long time. You may have seen him on television shows like 30 Rock. He's always a guest as he writes skits and participates in when Conan O'Brien was on the air, and of course Late Night with Jimmy Fallon, transitioned into the Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon still. So let me bring in, without further ado, hi Seth, how are you?
Hey guys,
we're just watching some of your old bits.
I noticed you can sort of hear me underneath what you're saying, but that first clip, you have no idea how dirty it is.
Oh, I do. That's why
performing.
I kept it really, really low because
after that one low.
After having John Rocker on last week, where we didn't really have the FCC actually came to my house afterwards for all the four-letter foul letters and everything he did.
I love the idea that the FCC makes a house call. It's like, well, you guys really went overboard tonight.
Hey, when you use a lot of derogatory F-bombs and things, but you can say whatever you want here, and you can do whatever you want. As we take a look at some of the great skits that you do, you put on. This was really funny.
This one was a Funny or Die bit. I did like a bunch of Funny or Die stuff in New York with the same directors, Brandon Leganke and John, his last name I'm spacing. And that was the biggest hit. That basketball one was like a giant hit for them. Well, this is insane.
Yeah,
so IFC had me go to different places and just set up a mic and start doing stand-up. And this was at a pizza place in Williamsburg. And everyone immediately left.
Well,
it was so absurd.
That's what I mean. You see the stuff, and I know you've been doing it for a long, long time.
Yeah,
I know. We're talking years and years and years and years. In fact, some of your early stuff, if you dig into the vaults and you do your due diligence of working super hard.
Patty of beef on a cheeseburger? Oh, that's Wendy's 99-cent quarter-pound double stack.
Yeah.
That comes that way.
I'll tell you some stories about this.
Look at that hair.
Yeah.
Is there a problem here?
Wendy's quarter-pound double stack is such a great deal at 99 cents. Some people find it hard to believe.
So you see, it comes with 2 patties of beef.
Yeah. I looked at it and I was like, holy cow, nice hair, first off.
I know.
Secondly, it looked like you were channeling your inner Steve Gutenberg there. So I know.
I wish. Gutenberg wishes he had that hair. Anyway, I was a year out of college and I was living in Jersey still, and I was growing my hair kind of long, and that was the only year I did it. I cut my hair short the following year. It's been short ever since. I had like 1 year of like long hair, and that ad was the second commercial I ever auditioned for, and it was this Wendy's ad with Dan Thomas. Is that his name?
Dave Thomas.
Yeah. And Dave had his lines. He had 2-3 lines, and they were on the counter written out in big letters because he couldn't remember them. And he was really upset with my long hair. He kept making jokes about it throughout the takes that I need to get a haircut and that we should give me a haircut. And the director kept having to tell me, no, we like it long. That's part of the character. It's part of the bit is that he has long hair. He's like, all right, but can we get a haircut for this guy? Seriously. And I remember walking into the dressing room before we shot, and I said, I introduced myself, and he's there with his like buddies who are all about his age. And I just said, hey, I'm Seth. I'm doing the commercial with you today. And he goes, you some big actor? I said, I'm about 5'10". No one laughs. He looks at his friend. He goes, the guy thinks he's a comedian. It was just a funny, weird day. Oh, one more little story about Dave Thomas. So he was talking about how he drives from Florida to Columbus, Ohio and back. That's where he has his homes. And he never flies. He doesn't like flying, and he drives. So I said, so how often do you just drop in at like a Wendy's on the road? He goes, I've never done that. I said, what? You've got it. And I convinced him, I was like, this drive that you're about to do to drive to Florida, you have to stop in at a Wendy's and say hi. Like people get their minds blown. You're like, okay, I'll do it.
And one little known, before Troy jumps in, one little known fact, you filmed that, I think, in 1993, if I was correct.
Yeah.
Sadly, because of your interaction with Dave Thomas, he died 9 years later.
9 years later.
So I wondered if you upset him so much that he lived with that turmoil and just dropped dead one day.
I know he dropped dead. No, he was a fun guy to work with. He was just he really didn't like doing it. I could definitely tell that he wasn't happy doing it. He was like, I got to do this. I don't really like doing it. It's my thing. He didn't remember the lines. He wanted to leave immediately.
Great.
You know?
Who are some of your comedic influences that you kind of took things from over the years?
So many.
Just a Seth?
No, my God, I am an amalgamation of anyone I've ever seen. I mean, like, I'll find myself doing a joke on stage, and I'll find myself falling into like Eddie Pepitone, you know, or who else? Occasionally, I'm Mulaney. Mike Showalter, who's a big director now from the state. Him and I have been friends since we were 6. So I'll occasionally find myself doing a delivery like Mike would do it. I mean, it's different people, you know, depending on the joke, and how the joke goes, depends on how I deliver it, like whose voice I end up doing by accident. And I try to change it, and I'll be like, I can't do that. I got to do my own thing.
And Seth, you know, I know as a comedian, it's tough. You've watched the evolution of, you know, dirty comedians, offensive comedians, you know, the all of them, you know, Dice Clay type guys. You know, what now as a comedian is off limits as a topic to joke about?
I mean, it depends on who you ask and what their own limitations are and what they think the audience's limitations are. You know, like I used to do a Tracy Morgan impression, and now other comics are telling me you really shouldn't be doing that on stage. You know, the people might not like it or would come off the wrong way. I mean, I only write jokes I'm comfortable with. I write jokes I'm comfortable saying, and if you write jokes that are good and you're comfortable in your own skin saying them, most of the time the audience will let it go if they enjoy it. The only thing I stay away from, the only topic I just stay away from in general is a woman's weight. There's never going to win as a guy talking about a woman's weight, you know? That's the only thing. Everything else is fine as long as it's a clever joke. And sometimes it may be, if you're the butt of the joke, that's the best thing. I mean, I'll often joke about things that are sensitive topics, but you joke about how we react to them. Like if there's a tragedy or a shooting or something like that, you know, I won't shy away from it, but I won't joke about the incident, but I'll joke about how we react to it as a culture. That's the joke. The joke is us and what the things people say and how they react to it. Like the school shootings, you know, like the fact that the Republicans think the doors are the problem. Like literal senators go on the air and talk about, well, if they had less doors, there'd be a lot less shootings. Are you serious right now? Doors is the issue? Anyway, I mean, things like that.
How did the idea of having your mom do stand-up with you start?
That started in 2001. I was performing regularly and producing a weekly show called The Industry Room. Started in 2001. It was a very popular weekly show for about a year and a half with who was in that? I'm spacing someone's name. John Viner and Josh Weinstein and Ophira Eisenberg. And my mom was living in Manhattan and desperate for stuff to do. She just was like in her apartment. So she'd come and watch the show all the time. And the first time she came and watched the show, I thought I'd do a funny bit where I would only tell stories about her. I was like, this whole set's going to be just stories about my mom. And then I'd call her up at the end of the set because the audience didn't know she was there. And then she would refute the stories. She'd be like, okay, here's why everything you're saying is wrong. You know, and that's how that started, basically.
Well,
and then we got into dancing and doing all kinds of things.
It worked out pretty well for you. And you know, I've done a lot of neat, cool things in my life. And one of my greatest experiences last year was actually doing stand-up, in front of a crowd. I call it sit down because my ass is on the ground. And, I'd never been so nervous. And I want your perspective of, I'm looking out at the audience and you are telling a joke and people aren't laughing or they're not getting it. Does it get in your mind? Do I do the next joke? How do I save this, this crowd? Do I care? Am I just going to work through my stuff? It was fun. I did about 8 minutes, penis on the ground jokes, stuff like that really killed. But, for you, those experiences, on the stage, I mean, it's got to be tough because when you're up there all alone, it's just you. Yet,
it's just you. You're like a boxer.
If you're
like
bombing, you're looking at faces. Are you reading the people in the room? Like what happens?
I mean, it happens all the time in different ways. I did a show in Montauk last week for a lot of people that I know, a lot of friends of mine who are out there. I did a big summer show. It was like a private show for people who kind of know me. And maybe that was a mistake because they weren't really laughing. They're like, we get it. Next, so it was like the first few minutes were kind of like weird, awkward. And then, the truth is people love to be in on a spontaneous moment, a moment that's happening and in the moment doesn't feel like a rote bit. So I started going in on this one guy who's a friend of ours about this thing that's happening at his hotel. And then he was laughing and I was teasing him and he started giving us information about what's really going on behind the scenes. And that got really funny and people started to laugh about it. You know what I mean? And that was what people remember. Like no one remembers, oh yeah, those first 10 minutes were awkward. They remember like, oh my God, that bit with you and Walt was so funny. And it was just, so some people, when things are going bad, they go into the crowd, they do crowd work. Or most of the time you just keep going and you try and get them back. Like, oh, goddamn, who was it? There was a comic who died who was really, really brilliant, who used to say, if you're bombing, just say the most honest thing you can think at the time, which is an interesting perspective because the point is what people think they're coming to a comedy show to laugh. But the truth is that's not why they're there. They are there to experience something. They're there to experience a moment. They're to have an experience. And if you're like truly honest and you mean what you say, that's really where the funny part, where they're laughing. They're laughing and you're like having a real moment, a real honest moment. And you try and create that with the jokes. Or if something really happens spontaneously in the audience and they're there to experience it, they're there to experience that moment. Do you understand what I'm saying? They think they're there to laugh, but that's not really why they're there. Does that make sense?
How much fun was it doing the real Wonder Woman skit for the real Wonder Woman, Gal Gadot, on Jimmy Fallon?
That was really something. We had planned it. That was planned so long, like years before we did it. I had been doing a Wonder Woman dance bit, which I still do occasionally.
Here we go.
About 01. Yeah, there's the tape of it. Yeah. So about, I don't know how many years ago, this was like 2015, 16, 17? I forgot what year this was. But I've been doing this bit since 01. Jimmy and I went on tour. We did a little comedy tour in 2014 or 15. And I did the dance in the tour. And he was like, one day we'll do this on the show whenever there's a new Wonder Woman film. This was like 3 years before we did it. And then when we did it, Gal didn't know we were going to do it. It was a total surprise. We surprised her. Jimmy was like, no, we're going to play Box of Lies, and whether she wins or loses, you're going to come out and dance no matter what happens. So she was such a good sport about it. She thought it was funny, and she wanted to take pictures. But that was like that's the climax pretty much of that bit. I don't know how much higher or crazier that bit can get. That's pretty much it.
It's been funny to see that, and it's just I wonder. Did you ever hear from Linda Carter? If she thought what she thought of it? No. Another level with is there's another dance bit I do that's like a James Bond spoof. So I did it at the Big Slick of 2019. I'm naked behind a sheet and I'm backlit, so you see my outline. And Live and Let Die comes on. And then, so it's like, was this a Hasidic James Bond?
No.
Okay.
There's no hole in the sheet. And so I'm backlit. Like you see at the beginning of every Bond film, there's like the silhouettes of like the naked women swimming around in the water or whatever. So it's sort of like that, but it's a naked me. And I'm doing these crazy dances. The dances get sillier and sillier as like Live and Let Die is a song that has like 7 songs within the song. So the tempos change and and it gets faster and slower and faster and slower. And it's a really silly, funny bit. I've been trying very hard to get Paul McCartney to see this video. I've given it to a lot of friends who know Paul McCartney to say, show him this thing. So I don't know if he's seen it or not, but I want to do that bit at a Paul McCartney show.
Well, I know Paul watches us and listens on all of our podcasts on Spotify and everywhere that we are, but we do have to pay some bills. But I'm very excited for you to see the network debut of this commercial, which I put a lot of time and effort into last night here, shot it all by myself. So we'll get your opinion on it and pay some bills at the same time here. Hi again, everybody. Dave Stevens here for Manscaped. And you know, what you see on the outside isn't always what you get down below. And what's the best way to get rid of all this unwanted stuff below the waist? By using the complete line of Manscaped products to get rid of all that unwanted, unsightly hair from down below. That's because Manscaped has come out with the Performance Package 4.0. Inside this set, you'll find their Lawnmower Waterproof 4.0 trimmer, the Weed Whacker Ear, Nose, and Hair Trimmer, Crop Preserver Ball Deodorant, Crop Reviver Toner, Performance Boxer Briefs, and a travel bag to hold all your goodies. So, if you want to get rid of this, or you can look like this, thanks to these amazing Manscaped products. And if you check out now and enter the code GSS Show, you save 20%. So go to manscaped.com. Your boys will thank you, and the significant others in your life will be happy too. All right.
I love that. All I could think was, who put you on the table?
Oh, I did. I just climbed up, you know.
You climbed up yourself.
Like I shot it. You know, my legs are still sitting over there next to the wall. I hadn't had them out of mothballs in 8 or 9 years. You know, those are the kind of zany things that I always do. Is I've always said, if people are going to stare at me, I might as well give them a show. But you know, we are so happy with Manscaped. You know, they support now the GSS show. You know, it is an amazing product. They do a lot of good for men, and they've got some amazing stuff here. In fact, Troy, they sent us so much stuff. Like, we've got the preserver that is the deodorant for your testicles. Mm-hmm. We've got the crop reviver. Now, I'm not making this up. It smells good. It looks good. And of course, the products that do the trimming and all that kind of stuff that did all the clipping. And no, I did not lose my legs thanks to Manscaped, but it's a great product. And as you saw on the ad right now, if you throw in the code GSS Show, you get 20% off and free shipping. And Troy, I know you got him. It kind of shocked you a little bit. You don't have to endorse this, Seth, but I wondered what you thought of that. Yeah, all done on my cell phone too.
Yeah, Seth, you're all balls anyways, right?
I'm all balls. I'm all balls. If you've ever seen anything, what's happening down here, it's literally 75% balls. I love that they came up with every possible pun and phrase you could use for trimming or scaping or ever. Like, there's like 1,000 puns in that ad.
Yes, and I mean, I just saw he just broke up with the Kardashian.
Pete Davidson.
Pete Davidson is the spokesman for Manscaped too. So what a perfect thing. So anyway, let's get back to our guest tonight, Seth Herzog, joining us. And Seth, I want you talk about the relationship with Jimmy Fallon and you know the things you've done with Conan and just looking at like this little thing here. I mean, how did that relationship start? And what's it like to just be friends with you know a comic genius?
That's a funny little montage you put together. Jimmy's a wonderful guy. I've never met a harder worker. His mind is always working 1,000%, you know, like 160 miles an hour. He has ideas all the time and fun, just really, really, really fun guy. We met, I mean, it's a long story, but I'll try and keep it short. We originally met in the late 90s, right before he got on Saturday Night Live, actually, the first time. I had a casting director friend who was actually a friend from camp, and now she was a casting director, and she called me in for stuff all the time, like sitcoms mostly. And then she called one day out of the blue, and she said, "Oh my God, we just met the funniest guy. He's so funny. He's so charming, so good looking. He's hilarious." I'm like, "Why are you calling to tell me this? Why are you calling to tell me you met someone funnier than me?" And then it's like, we think you guys should be friends. So we're going. So me and Bonnie Finnegan, her the other casting director she worked with, are going to see him do stand-up tonight. You should come with us. So I went with them. Jimmy was doing a showcase for Abrams, which he was with at the time. He did a set. We met briefly after the show, and then, but we didn't it didn't stick or anything. We just met in passing, and then we had met literally in passing for years. After he got on Saturday Night Live, we'd meet at parties and we'd chat, but he never quite, remembered me. But it wasn't until I did a Stella video. I did a short video with Showalter and Dave Wayne and Mike Black, who I was good friends with, and he loved my bit in the Stella video, and that's when we became friends. And that's when he put a name to a face and we started hanging out a lot. And then when we did Late Night, when Late Night started, he was like, "You got to be my warm-up guy. You got to do it. You're the guy. You're the best guy for it." And then I started on the show, and I've been doing bits on the show ever since, and doing the comedy before the show starts every single day for 13 years.
Speaking of friends, we thought that we would surprise you with a blast, I guess, from your past, but also still currently in your life. Buddy of yours, Michael Brodsky, who's an author.
Oh, my Lord.
How you doing, man?
Good to see you, buddy. Yeah, if you guys, which explained that we went to theater camp together.
Yes, and here is an embarrassing photo of that experience, right?
That's not embarrassing. That was a highlight.
Is that before the bar mitzvah?
84, 3 months before.
Yeah, I seen your bar mitzvah video, and I think you were still wearing that sweater.
Yes,
that's the same sweater.
No, that's funny. If that's 84, it's a year after. It's a year after the bar mitzvah.
Well, thank you, Michael, for joining us. And Michael, I know, how did you guys meet, and why are you still friends, or why are you not friends?
We met at camp.
Well, we met at Stage Door, right, Seth? I mean, before I got there in 1992. He started. I think we both.
I was there the year before.
1985, right?
What's that?
No, we both went to 85. You were there from 81 to 80.
81 to 85, yeah.
81, 85.
I was there for 5 summers. And they give out awards if you do well, and you also give out an award if you're there for 5 years. The biggest award you get is the 5-year award. That's the biggest award you could get if you've lasted for 5 summers.
I only did 4, so I missed that out.
You missed it. You missed the 5 years. Like a giant thing.
Did you keep
Stage Door was fun. I mean, I'm still friends with most of those guys, like Josh Charles and John Sherman and Adam Mornoff, and all those guys are still my great friends.
That's what I was just curious. It was about. I mean, when you think that Stage Door manner training on what do you remember? What is it that's your career?
What is it that's what?
It's had an impact on your current career.
I would say, honestly, the biggest impact of camp is the work ethic you are thrown into that you can't shy away from. Like at this theater camp, and if you're really into musical theater, you should go. But it's very intense. You do like 3 classes in the morning, then you're in 2 plays that you rehearse simultaneously. There's a major production and a mini production, they call it. And so there's you're constantly working. You're in 3 classes and 2 shows at the same time. So the thing that sort of helped me up is that you have to be great all the time and you work all the time. You can't slack. And this is your lines for today, and they better be brilliant.
Well, at least look at all these years later, you guys are still together, still friends. Now, what's that in your hand, Michael? For our listeners at home, they can't see you're holding up some pamphlets or something.
Playbills for when you do a show, you get a playbill.
Seth was in.
Was I in that, Heidi?
That's what it says here.
I played. You know who I played? I had a teeny part. In that, Heidi. I was Eric the organ grinder.
Wow.
You guys didn't interrupt a football game or anything while you were doing that show, did you?
We probably
summertime. There was no NFL going on in that.
There was no sports at this camp. In fact, in the camp video, there's a montage of people playing sports, and it's the kitchen staff.
Are you alluding to it's tough to name a Jewish athlete other than Sandy Koufax, or what are you talking about here?
I'm just talking about there was a tennis court and a basketball court, and no one ever used them.
Well, Michael,
what's that? Is that Birdie? I was in that Birdie. Yeah.
You were in that.
I won an award for that. No, that was the only thing I got nominated for that didn't win. What's that?
How about Gypsy?
Gypsy. Let me tell you something. This is a crowning achievement. I had 2 parts in that Gypsy production. I had a part in Act 1, a part in Act 2, and I won an award for both. I won 2 awards for that season for 2 different parts. Nice. And I think my life peaked at that point.
How about Cabaret?
I was in Cabaret. It's my last show I did there. It was the last show I did there in Cabaret. I was Ernst the Nazi. And it was really funny. I end Act 1 singing Tomorrow Belongs to Me, which is this Nazi theme song, to a sea of Jewish parents in the audience who lived through World War II. And the looks on their faces were priceless. This little Jewish boy sings Tomorrow Belongs to Me at the end of Act 1 to silence. No one clapped. They were
kind of like this show, right? Like this show?
Similar, yeah.
Exactly. A couple more, just and No Nanette.
No Nanette was one of my first shows. That was my first show in '82 with Adam Mornoff was in that with me, who was my roommate and great friend, and Smurf was in that. We were just chorus boys. We were chorus boys, and No Nanette. We had the best time. Time. Just being stupid because we didn't have anything to do.
Better being than altar boys, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
What's that, Mike?
About when you think about our time there, I mean,
yeah.
And but Jack Romano and
Jack Romano character, and I wish there was more information on him you could find. He was this little Cuban gay fireball who always was smoking advantages, constantly smoking. And he yelled at us. He was like the artistic director of the camp. And he treated all these 12 and 13-year-olds like we were 35-year-old Broadway professionals. So he was just constantly throwing chairs and yelling at us. These 11-year-old kids are on stage. He's like, what the fuck do you think you are doing on stage? You look like a fucking idiot. Do something, okay? Okay. Constantly. Like this, like he said so many dirty, terrible things to kids who were like 11 and 12 who don't know what they're doing. He was treating us like we were like 45-year-old pros, like constantly yelling and throwing chairs, constantly. It was insane.
Training and certainly the whole experience. So you got to.
He scared us into being good. Like half the reason you were good is because you didn't want Jack to yell at you. So like you were like, I'm going to do the best performance and reach deep in my soul and be amazing because I don't want Jack to throw a chair at my face.
Well, thank you, Jack. And Michael, thank you for joining us. We apologize for your audio issues, but we are going to have you back on the show down the road. Right. You've got your book coming out.
What's your book, Mike?
Hear
you. Fourth Down and Damn Alignment Story is told by Michael Brodsky. And I think 29th, I'll be on with Leon
Searcy's book and
amazing.
Jaguars.
All right, Michael. Thanks you. We'll get your audio fixed for next time, but thank you for joining us. And we got to pay some more bills. Just real quick here. Hey, that's what we do in the show. So, if you'd like 20% off the world's softest, comfiest, best fitting men's clothes, well, Fresh Clean Threads has your back and your front and your sides with everything from tees to tanks and Henleys to polos and pullovers and hoodies. Get designer quality basics without paying ridiculous prices. Confidence shouldn't cost a fortune. Go to freshcleanthreads.com, freshcleanthreads.com. Use the special code GSS Show for 20% off your order. I'm dancing because I look so good in these clothes. I've got another one on right here. And again, they are really nice. So thank you to our sponsors. Your perfect fits await. So we got those things out of the way as we continue our new friend, Seth Herzog. And we apologize for the audio having your buddy on, but it's nice to see that those friendships that you had and you've had to continue in your life with comedians and things like that. Is there other comedians that we don't know about you're really close to that would shock us?
I don't know who would shock you. I don't know what you think of me. I mean, I ran into our other friend here, Troy, at in KC at the Big Slick.
Yeah, we're gonna get into that in a second here.
Yeah, I mean, like, Paul Rudd and I are old friends, and he got me involved in that. And I knew actually Sudeikis and Riggle from years before that.
Our mutual friend David Keckner and those guys.
Well, I met Keckner doing the charity event. I didn't know him before that, but Riggle I knew through doing stand up, and I met Sudeikis like right before he became a cast member that August, and then we did a movie together actually, and then we became buddies. And he started doing. I do the show Sweet, this big monthly show in New York City. The next one's this coming Tuesday at the Chelsea Music Hall. But it used to be weekly. I used to have to do this whole event weekly, and Riggle and Sudeikis and Rudd have all been a part of it a lot.
Okay, so speaking of Big Slick, you've been a supporter and become a regular now. Just talk about how much fun you have when you come back to Kansas City, and how much it means for you to visit a hospital and supporting this great charity with Children's Mercy Hospital.
I knew very little about it. I mean, I knew about it because I've been around for like 4 or 5 years before Paul asked me to come and be involved. And I knew that it was just like this big fun weekend. I didn't really know too much about the hospital part of it until I got there. And then you realize you have to go to the hospital as part of the thing. You got to, you should visit the kids, and you visit the kids, and it's such a profound experience of these like kids who are like have these undefined cancers that are like very rare, and this is the only place that really handles that, and there's all these and then no one ever pays for anything. So like everyone is just there from all different backgrounds, like a lot of poor kids, and it's really bonding. Like I gotta tell you, there's a whole group of us that go every year, and we're only together for 2 days a year, but like we really feel close to each other. Like it's an immense 2 days, 48 hours where you're like together for 48 hours, trauma bonding basically, or having like a lot of fun. Like you go to the hospital, and then you do there's a big baseball game, you do a softball game together, and then we do some sort of we watch the other game, then we do some drinking, and then the next day there's usually a bowling tournament, and then there's a big show at night. So there's like a lot happening with each other at once. Anyway, it's really fun, and I'm really glad and it's one of the most important and fun things I do every single year. And they make me perform every year, and I have to. And now the Kansas City community expects me to do something crazy every year, and I have to up it every time. And it's hard. I think I've maxed out on things to do. I've done every trick in the book I have at that show.
Well, speaking of kids, you got 2 twins of your own. How is that raising 2 twins? And you gone nuts yet, or?
What's funny? I always think about this. It was really hard the first year when you have babies, like 2 babies that are crying at you all the time. Like it's really hard. It's like impossible. Like even with my wife, and we had a lot of help, it still was really hard. And I always thought to myself, why? And it gets easier as time goes on, especially when they become 3. Now they're 3, and it's like they walk around, they have opinions, they can dress themselves, they can go to the bathroom by themselves. Like it's so much easier than it was the first year. And I was like, why would nature make the hardest year the first year? Wouldn't they make that the easiest year, and it gets harder as you go on? Why would it do it backwards? Anyway, they're really fun, and they say funny stuff, weird stuff all the time. Like we were watching Sesame Street yesterday, and one of my 3-year-olds goes, talking about one of the Muppets. He goes, "Is she wearing a wig?" I was like, how do you describe whether a Muppet's wearing a wig or not? Like, yes, no.
I am not wearing a wig. I am Super Grover.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's all fake hair anyway. Nothing's real about this. I don't know why you think is they're wearing a wig. They say all sorts of funny stuff. One of them, Kieran, the same one, asked the other day, asked me very profoundly, is God a stranger? Because we've been talking about strangers, like not talking to people you don't know. And she asked if God was a stranger, and I was like, yes. If someone says they're God, someone comes up to you and says they're God, they're definitely a stranger.
What if God was one of us?
Yeah, exactly. And they've heard that song. They like that. They like that song. They're into that song, which is, I think, what came from that question came out of listening to that song. They're like, wait a minute. What if I did see God in a bus? Should I say hi?
Next up is, who's this Santa Claus guy? Because we're getting ripped off on the Hanukkah presents, right?
No, they're very. Even though we live in kind of a Jewish house, they are very aware of Christmas and they get a lot of Christmas gifts.
Awesome. Well, as we wind up, I did want to ask you, you've done so much, and let's say we were having a beer, taking some ayahuasca or something together, and I wanted to ask you, like, what is that go-to highlight or a moment for you in your career? Was it Conan? Was it Jimmy? Is it something that would be obscure, South by Southwest? Like, there's that Super Bowl moment for you.
I would say the year 2019, I hit 4 big goals. That was like a big year for me right before the pandemic. Was I opened for the final Beastie Boys show ever. They did I don't know if you know, they did like a talking tour that became the show on Apple TV where they tell their whole story. So at the last show, they needed a comic